Welcome to episode number 6 of Stories Sustain Us. I'm your host, Stephen Schauer, and today there is a truly inspiring and thought-provoking conversation in store for you. My guest, Jennifer Cairns, shares her incredible life story from growing up in the U.S. to her move to Belfast, Northern Ireland. Jennifer opens up about her experiences of feeling like she didn't fit in, her struggles with anxiety, and her journey of uncovering her neurodivergent diagnosis, including autism and ADHD. In this episode, Jennifer discusses the challenges she and her family have faced, and she emphasizes the importance of normalizing conversations around mental health and disabilities while shedding light on the unique challenges faced by individuals with hidden disabilities. Jennifer also passionately highlights the economic benefits of investing in disabled founders and the need for greater support and empowerment. Let me tell you a bit more about Jennifer, and then we'll jump into the conversation. Jennifer Cairns is a neurodivergent and disabled entrepreneur, author, mentor, changemaker, and founder of Rebel World Limited and Lady Rebel Club, where they work to create global opportunities for women and other marginalized gender entrepreneurs, small business owners, creators, and leaders who are neurodivergent or disabled. They do this via their own global media platforms, tech for good, rebel collaborations, and with genuine care for their diverse communities. The organizations she founded are also great resources and support for allies. Jennifer has a host of neurodivergent mental health and physical health issues, which she very openly shares about in this interview. Jennifer wants everyone to know she feels blessed with the life she has, and especially by her husband, their 2 cheeky and lovely boys, and their dog. You will learn, as I did from this interview, Jennifer is the epitome of indomitable, and she pours her grit, passion, and care into everything she does. She is clearly determined to leave the world better than she found it and to live her life as an example for her sons to show that anything is possible and that being different doesn't make anyone less than. It's a really compelling conversation. Let's dive into Jennifer's powerful story and learn about the mission of Lady Rebel Club right here on Stories Sustain Us, where we are inspiring action through the power of storytelling. All right. Well, Jennifer, welcome to Stories Sustain Us. Thank you so much for taking time to join me today. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm grand. Yes. Thanks very much for having me, Stephen. Very glad to be here.
Well, tell everybody where you are from right now. Where I'm in Seattle, and I know you're over in the UK, but what part of the UK am I speaking to you?
I'm just outside of Belfast in Northern Ireland.
Oh, right on. I wasn't sure when we booked this. I didn't know where you were over there.
Yes.
So fantastic. That's lovely. I've been to Dublin before. That's as close as I've ever come to Belfast. But hopefully
yes.
I'd love to get over there sometime.
Yeah, it's only about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes south of here.
Yeah, wonderful. So, you know the format of the show, and we're going to get into Lady Rebel Club and all the wonderful work that you're doing in just a few minutes. But I'd love to get to know you a little bit. So what's your life like? How, where did you grow up? What was life like as a kid? How did you get to be the advocate that you are and the entrepreneur that you are today? What's your life story?
Oh, yes. That could be several episodes. I think.
Give me the highlights.
I'll give you the highlights. Well, I'm actually from America originally, believe it or not. Yes,
What
a lot of
part?
people wouldn't believe that by my accent. In between Southern Ohio and South Florida. So my mom's from Ohio, and my father's actually from Florida, and I met my husband, who's from Belfast, in South Florida, and came over here for a visit. That was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And still here, 2 kids later, and a dog. So yeah, kind of fell in love with the place and obviously him.
Yeah,
So
good. That's important.
That's a bonus, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but growing up, it kind of bounced around in between those 2 states quite a bit. And then in my kind of late teens, early 20s, traveled more, was a little bit more of a nomad at that stage. And
throughout the States or globally?
Yeah, more through the States. And then I always kind of never felt like I belonged anywhere, as a kid. I always strived and would sometimes go, actually, that too overboard, to try and fit in and belong with particular groups, doing wild and crazy things like, yes, look at me, I do fit in, see, I'm one of you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was difficult. People probably wouldn't have noticed it as much because it did come across quite, very much like an extrovert, and played sports and did all of the things, and was always out and about, but never really felt comfortable. And it's funny because now looking back, even through, again, even just like, high school, those 4 years alone, you could tell different boyfriends, and things like that, or friend groups, even by the way I dressed, by the music I listened to. And I know some of that we all kind of go through, but it was drastic. And even after that, and it was always just like, again, it was that, masking, as a term that, especially with people who are neurodivergent like myself, and always trying to fit in to the environment around you, and doing your best to kind of blend in, and having that yearning to fit in. So, but I always felt like an alien is kind of the best way, I can describe it, and that I never quite fit in. And like I said, a bit of a bumpy childhood, bounced around quite a bit, and just even with work, never could really settle with anything. And as far as like being employed or things like that, I struggled a lot. I struggled with university, even though I had a really high GPA and things of that nature.
Yeah. Was that here in the United States as well, or?
Well, I went there and then I went here as well.
Okay.
When I first moved here for a semester, and struggled even more here, I think, because just the way that they work things are slightly differently, and because at that time I had still quite an American accent, so I stood out quite a bit, and it was just really awkward. I can be very socially, again, a lot of people might not think it because I'm quite, chirpy and bubbly, most of the time. But yes, I would struggle socially, especially in person. This kind of stuff's great. But the in-person stuff's a bit more of a struggle.
Is that kind of the, again, going back to that masking term, is that idea that what you're displaying on the outside is not what you're experiencing on the inside? Is that kind of, so I think what I'm hearing you say is that you kind of fit in, at least as far as how others would have saw you, but you yourself were in a great deal of discomfort internally. Is that accurate?
Yes, completely. And it's funny, because it's even things that you don't realize that other people think or do, right? Because we don't have these conversations with people.
Right.
And it wasn't actually even that long ago when I was talking to my husband, and I remember when we first came over here, and I worked for a newspaper for a while. And I remember like sitting at the desk on, like a Friday, like planning in my head and visually walking through it. All right, here's how I need to behave when we're out with his friends. Here's some things that I could say when we're going to have a conversation, to start a conversation. Here's how I should react when there's a goal, football. Here's how I can
soccer for us US people, but it's really football.
Yes, right. So it's all of these things, right? And it was really, and he was like, Jennifer, no, most people don't do that. And I was like, what do you mean? Of course everybody does that. So it's even things like that, like all of these little additional, almost like stressors, right? We carry around with us and kind of put ourselves through, in order to cope with the world around us, because for a lot of us who are neurodivergent, let alone maybe, have additional disabilities, the world really, society, maybe not so much the world, but society really wasn't designed with us in mind. So a lot of times it can feel like a cheese grater.
That's a powerful description. That's I've never heard.
I think that's how a lot. I think a lot of us can relate to that, in that it can leave us feeling very raw, right? At times.
Wow. Sounds, what you described, the planning and the thinking through these scenarios. Also, the story I'm telling myself about it sounds like there's a lot of anxiety around these social situations, that can be really overwhelming, it sounds like.
It would be, yes, and I have multiple anxiety profiles. So I have CPTSD, I
Mm,
have generalized anxiety disorder as well.
yeah,
I have, yes, huge social anxiety. And really what led to a lot of uncovering, I like to say, or
sure.
joining, a lot of the neurodivergent party aspect was my anxiety was so bad at a stage that I was probably borderline agoraphobic, where I really
Oh,
struggled to leave the house
yeah,
unless it
yeah,
was with my husband to go to maybe one cafe and have a cup of tea. And that I was fine with. I had a particular table that I like to sit at, and if it wasn't
sure.
available, we would stand there for half an hour and
Yeah,
wait and see if it would free.
yeah. All these like
Um,
mechanisms to control your
Yes, to
environment and
control
control.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
I
yeah. That
had
makes
a
sense.
massive, massive Zach, and anyone who's neurodivergent or has suffered from anxiety, especially ADHD in any way, will understand that term. For those of you who haven't, a Zach is a zombie apocalypse kit. So it's kind
Oh,
of a fun
wow.
way. And a lot of us have a very kind of almost dark sense of humor, right? Because you have
Yeah,
to cope through
yeah.
things
Sure, sure.
sometimes. And that's our thing that we prep with us, and then we bring in case literally, right? There's a zombie apocalypse or the end of the world or whatever, doomsday thing is going to happen. And
Right,
that's
right.
our way of, like, again, coping as a coping mechanism, is to
Yeah.
kind of have these things around us. And they can be very small, they can be, now I had one at one time that was before COVID was it was quite large. It took up a bit of our of the space in the laundry room, and but everybody was very happy about that. Our neighbors were, because then when COVID hit, I said, I have lots of hand sanitizer. I
Oh,
have lots of toilet paper. I have lots of things that we could share with people that
yeah,
were running low at that
yeah.
time. So,
So you were
but I
just
have worked very
prep.
hard to get it smaller.
That's your zombie apocalypse kit. You were just
Yes,
kind of that's every
yeah,
day for you. If I'm
it
on,
was.
so when COVID hit, it wasn't like I gotta go stock up. You were kind of that was your
I didn't
preparation
actually.
mechanism anyway.
We had a lot of health stuff in our family that all kind of happened
Mm-hmm.
within that time period or leading up to that time period. That set aside, it didn't actually phase me. And I know that sounds from the point of view like, oh my goodness, look what's happening in the world.
Yeah,
Because in my mind, I had ran through so many scenarios
sure.
of what can happen. I was actually probably strangely calm about it, and can be that way in really kind of upsetting or stressful type of situations like that. I do
Yeah,
tend to ironically cope
yeah.
pretty well, and can
That
deal
makes
with
sense.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can appreciate that. I
Mm,
understand that.
yeah.
So how did you uncover your neurodivergent um, diagnosis? How did what was that process like for you, if you don't mind sharing that?
Yeah, no, well, part of it was through examining the layers of anxiety, and especially around the GAD that I had,
Hmm.
and trying to sift, if you
That's
will,
general anxiety disorder. That's
yes,
just making
yeah.
sure
So
people
trying to kind
understand the
of
acronym.
sift, if you will, like what was purely that, or the social, or what was maybe other things. Because again, if you're autistic, for instance, which I am, or
Hmm.
ADHD,
Hmm.
it's a lot of us do have different levels of anxiety in different ways.
Sure.
Tends to go with those kind of profiles. And so it was just kind of sifting through that. And then later on, my youngest son, is also autistic, and it was
Okay.
ironically, through some of that process. And funny enough, especially for a lot of adults who are, late to the party or late
Yeah.
diagnosed,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's often, not always, but often through our children or other family members or friends who are, have gone through that process. And we start to go,
You start
this sounds a
connecting those
little
dots.
familiar.
Yeah. Yeah.
I recognize this, right?
Right. Right.
Um, yeah. And it's funny now, because it's almost kind of like we tend to kind of, not always, all of us of course, but we do tend to kind of connect with each other unbeknownst to us at times.
Mm.
And it was really funny because there's many people that I had met over the past 10 years who also didn't realize at the time that they were autistic or ADHD, or or something of that, especially those two,
Hmm.
and especially in women, because our diagnosis process and criteria was always previously gauged as that of a man, which is very different. We present quite differently.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, for instance, because of the level of masking we have, we can be quite good at eye contact. We can be quite social. We can be, all these kinds of things, right? Which supposedly, autistic people can't, do or aren't.
Yeah.
But yeah, through that diagnosis of my son as well, that led to me just researching a lot more and realizing a lot more than, about myself as well on multiple layers.
And how long ago was this? Over 10 years, I'm gathering from the story, but just for the timeline.
Well, yeah, the one was over 10, and then the other one was probably now I've been off the record diagnosed with kind of ADHD, but I'm waiting for the actual NHS diagnosis to go through, which I've been waiting now 4 years.
Okay.
So it's quite it's very, it was bad before, but then with COVID and everything else, it's everything. Yeah, the wait times that's a whole other conversation. But they're terrible at the minute.
Yeah. So, I think I've heard you say you had 2 children. Is that correct? What are their ages? And
18 and 14.
18 and 14, and so everybody's doing well there in Belfast.
Yes. My eldest, in fact, just on Monday finished his last A-level exam, which is, a big set of exams you have to do here your last year in what we would have called high school.
Sure.
So his last year and his last test that he has to do, and he doesn't get his final grades until August.
Yeah.
So the school system here is a little different when it comes to that, and then university and everything else. Like you have to apply ahead of time. So he wants to go into aerospace engineering. So he applied to Queen's. They give his teachers give an estimate of what they think his grade's going to be. The university writes back and says, yes, we will accept you if you get these grades.
Sure.
So there's a lot more forethought in the education system that goes in here. There's pluses and minuses, of course, to all of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting. So he's happy at the minute because he's, sort of done. And the youngest one, he's doing really well also. So he's unhappily still in school at the minute. So yes, he has a couple of weeks. He had a couple of weeks more in school. So he's kind of protesting that. Well, why do I have to go? As they do, right?
That's what teenagers are supposed to do. Find themselves, push the boundaries a little bit, and explore the world a little bit. So it sounds sounds like he's right where he's supposed to be. So
yeah.
Wonderful. And your family of origin, I'm assuming at some point we'll talk a little bit about your sister. I don't as it relates to the fund that you have set up, but I don't know how comfortable or how much you want to share about that story. But your family of origin, do you have any other siblings or?
I have a brother, who is in actually Arizona. So in fact, we are going in the end of June, and for a month, nearly, it's like 3.5 weeks to America, and visiting my father, who's in South Florida still, for a week, and then going out to Arizona to visit my brother. So he lives out there. There's cousins out there. My children have never met and things. And then, my sister, as you mentioned, who passed last summer, Francesca.
Yeah. Sorry to when I was browsing your website and
not at all.
Read about Frankie's fund and the bit that you shared on the website. My heart goes out to you, and I'm sorry for that loss.
Oh, thanks very much. It's the reality of things, and I think this is it. And although I'm a very positive person, I always believe that things can always be better and things can always be worse, no matter what situation that you're in. That's how I tend to look at life. That's how I encourage my children and friends and family to look at life. And but I'm a realist as well, and I think that that's one of the things that sets a lot of the conversations that we have within our community and the way that we approach connecting with our community and people outside of our community is that you have to have real conversations about things. And yes, you can have a bit of a sense of humor about it and all of that. But at the end of the day, things, there are additional challenges that humans like I have. There's, additional challenges in life. There's, additional challenges in the entrepreneurial business space. And we're not robots. So although our business is a separate entity, what happens to us as individuals, of course, affects that, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
And our mental health and everything as well, and unfortunately with my sister, she was also neurodivergent. She was bipolar. She struggled with mental health a lot, as did I, pretty much most of my life, from the age of 6. And she had fibromyalgia and a couple of other things as well that physically would, flare and cause her a lot of difficulty. She was a great poet and photographer, and often a lot of her media subject, her subject media was dark. But she always found an interesting way, to bring sometimes dark subject matter to life, if you will. And,
find the humanity in that darkness.
And very, very funny, very kind, very intelligent, and could have really been all the things that I know she wanted to do with her talent. And unfortunately, she did, like I said, she did struggle a lot with her bipolar and her additional mental health aspects, and that led her down some dark alleys. And she was an addict, and unfortunately, that's what got her in the end. And it happens to so many of us, and of course, you don't have to be neurodivergent or have mental health conditions to be an addict or an alcoholic or anything like that. However, a lot of us who are, there's a much higher suicide rate. There's a much higher, abuse of alcohol and becoming narcotics and things rate. Because we do struggle so much with the world around us, and it can help to numb that. I myself now, when I was again in high school and even in my early 20s, mid 20s to some extent, it was more alcohol for me. So I drank a lot. Yes, a lot. And that was not only a way of trying to fit in, with those kind of partying kids and all of that, but it was a way of just trying to cope. You don't realize it at the time, unfortunately. But it is a very real struggle that, a lot of us would have.
And just to match your vulnerability and honesty that you're sharing, I'm very familiar with drinking. I'm an alcoholic. I'm in recovery, over 18 years sober at this point. But I can relate to drinking entirely too much in my late teens, 20s, and into my 30s before I got sober. As you said, not knowing that that's what I was doing to cope with life, but that's what I was doing. I didn't know how to fit in either. Some of the things that you've talked about, on the outside, people might have thought I had it all together and was on this upward trajectory in life, but on the inside, that was not what was going on. And so I can relate in some ways to what you're describing, maybe for different diagnosable reasons, but certainly can understand and share my empathy and compassion for some of that challenge that you've had to go through. And certainly my heart goes out to your sister. I've known a number of folks who who are not with us anymore because of similar issues, and it's hard. It's a hard part of life, but it is certainly I think conversations like this where we get to normalize these very real things that don't need to be hidden in a closet. We don't need to pretend that mental health issues aren't real, and substance use disorder is a thing, a diagnosable thing that people need compassion and help for, not shame and shunning for. So I appreciate your willingness to come on and be vulnerable and say this is your truth. It's really powerful. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Oh no, of course, and that's a big thing, and that was one of the things that I really noticed. Is I like to I call it like the 3 waves. When I always had like I said, mental health kind of conditions and anxiety stuff kind of growing up. And as I got older, I developed, like fibromyalgia, and I have like migraines and just different things. But there was also additional things kind of going on with me that at the time, that this is going back now, maybe 10, 12 years, they couldn't quite put their finger on, and spent years just kind of being poked and prodded, and all this kind of stuff. And it kind of led up to the point of like towards the end of 2019. Now, at the end of 2019, my husband, and we ran a business together at the time, and he just ran like 10 miles a day, 6 days a week, was very, fit and healthy. And completely out of the blue, he had a stroke.
Oh, geez.
And that really, of course, changed everything in our life, changed the family dynamic, changed the, the business, which pretty much ceased to exist at that stage. And because he had his gallbladder out before that, so it was post-surgery, and it was just one of those fluke things where he also happened to have a hole in the heart, which actually 25% of the population does, never causes them any bother.
Yeah.
But in his case, there was a very, very small clot that went through that hole in the heart, and that's what caused the stroke. Because he was post-stroke, they couldn't give him the anti-stroke medication. So it ended up being quite an impactful, stroke. And he's done years and years of rehabilitation. And I have to say, he's all sort of hats off to him. He's that's where his stubbornness, has come really, been very handy for him. He's been able to sort of use that, and even to this day, and like I said, that was towards the end of 2019. He has to do like about anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours of really OT, work, or else his whole right side, which he doesn't have much feeling on, and he has a lot of like nerve damage and stuff.
Yeah.
But he has to just to do those workouts and things to, keep things in check, so to say.
His speech recovery,
he's recovered, I think, as much as he's going to. It did affect his mobility, to some extent. Like he had to learn how to walk again. He couldn't even talk really when he had the stroke. Now that came back fairly quickly, but he had to, go through that process. Like I said, he had to learn to walk and everything again. So it was quite an arduous journey for him and for the family,
for everybody,
as a whole.
Sure,
of course. So it was very topsy-turvy at that time. And then about 2 months after he had a stroke, and he had only been out of hospital at this stage for maybe like 2 weeks, 3 at the most. But every day he was down at the brain injury clinic for like 5 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And I got my blood cancer diagnosis at that stage. And then 2 months after that, COVID hit.
Yeah.
It was like, are you serious?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
But because again, we kind of have this very dark sense of humor about things in life in general. I think my husband and I, after his stroke, we were kind of going, right, that's one of the big three, right? There's heart attack, stroke, cancer. So hopefully that's us as, as parents, kind of hopefully, tick, that's us ticked, and nothing else major is going to happen. And of course, as soon as we said that, like I said, 2 months after that, I got my diagnosis. And then of course, again, we were like, now this has to be it, right? It can't get any worse than this. What else could happen?
Oh my.
2 months later,
adventure.
Presto. A pandemic. So we kind of both looked at each other and said, if either one of us opens our mouth,
no more making future predictions, right?
Yes, don't say a word.
Oh, goodness.
So so it was a lot I'm not going to lie, it was really a lot to cope with and deal with. And we had
did COVID hinder both of your recovery processes? Did that
for sure,
it down?
because
I'm sure considerably because of the pandemic.
It did. Now he was still able to go to the brain injury clinic because he was luckily he had had a stroke beforehand, and he was already on the list with the place
in the system,
because they weren't taking any new patients, I don't think, at that time. So that was good. And then with myself, my first treatment, I think, was in June. They did delay it a little bit. I think they were kind of hoping things would, pass to some extent. Now I did take my first treatment in June, but then of course doing that meant that the whole family, now at that stage of everyone was shielding, right?
Sure.
But then as things started to open up a bit, it made it actually more difficult for myself and my family, because at that stage then we were really shielding, and I didn't really leave the house for 3 years. because of my, I was immunosuppressant anyway, but because of treatments and things like that, it was like nothing. And then there was an additional treatment they wanted to give me because off the back of my cancer, I developed a thing called paraneoplastic syndrome. So it's kind of an autoimmune response to the cancer where my body in its, great vigor to defeat the cancer cells attacks healthy nerve cells.
Attacks everything, sure.
Yeah, so it's attacked nerve cells now along my neck and my spine, and now we think in my brain as well. So it's caused things like additional neuropathic stuff. Like I'm actually strange things like I'm starting to lose the feeling in my toes and my fingers. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but it affects your dexterity.
Absolutely.
Even things like typing on your phone or your keyboard, but then like feeling the face of your children, and things like this. So kind of strange things. And then seizures and things like that it's caused. So it's good fun, yes.
Sounds like just a party all the time.
It is. This is it, right? I am definitely an interesting cocktail of a myriad of things, so to say.
I appreciate the dark humor and clearly the laughter and joy that you find in what is a list of undoubtedly incredibly hard things. So I mean that
if you're still here, and don't get me wrong, sometimes all of us can go through those periods where we say, why am I here? And especially whether, your condition or your disability can create those dark days or can create immense pain, or suffering or whatever it is. So I understand that and fully appreciate that as well. And but I do think going through the things that I've gone through, that I think why I've been able to come through is, I think, and partially is because of the way that my brain is made, and I'm able to kind of deal and have such an immense amount of grit because I've had to growing up, right? I've had to
really resilient person.
Not only was I born that way, but I think because of different things, through life, I've definitely have been sort of made that way. And but so I'm proud of the fact that I was able to keep the family kind of together and going. And was everything perfect? No. But we got through it, and I think in a lot of ways we came through it a lot stronger, even together as a family unit.
That can happen. Absolutely.
Yeah. And even on the business side, that's what it was in the course of all of that whirlwind that was going on through my first treatment, that I had the very first inclination for Lady Rebel Club, and had this huge, massive epiphany. And it was funny how you mentioned even around like the hiding aspect, right?
Yeah.
About how I could see, and I hadn't realized it about myself, which of course, usually we don't. We see things in others first. But I could see even on social media, there were so many women like myself in different Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups or things of this nature, who here and there would mention something about their disability or their chronic condition or whatever it might be. But they didn't want people to know. Like you could tell that they didn't really want to talk about it. And when it was very much in the format of what other people think, and how we have to be more and do more. And I started to, think about that. And like I said, it was almost within this, it felt like a millisecond almost. And I was thinking back, all these scenarios flashing. I'm a very visual sort of thinker, flashing past my mind's eye, if you will, and of how many times I said to my husband, our clients can't know I have fibromyalgia, our clients can't know this, our clients can't know that, and you didn't want them to know anything because it really truly is, they think that we're not as capable. Right. Are you going to be able to get the work done? Are you lazy? Are you worth me paying as much?
Right.
All of these kinds, and it doesn't really matter where you live, even in our, fantastically supposedly advanced Western countries. And it's very, that thinking, those biases, those archaic attitudes very much exist.
They are systemic and embedded. Absolutely. Which is why what you're doing to shine a light on that and let's, say we should change that. Let's acknowledge it's there. Yes. There are these systemic, deeply flawed ways of thinking within our society that almost force people to live a dual life. Like it sounds like you were describing. There was you
Yes.
who knew of these conditions and knew that that's who you were, but then there was this persona you felt pressured, it sounds like to me, into pretending to be, and that's hard to live two lives at one time. So
It
tell
really
us
is.
about
It is. And I think when you look at it through then the added container of, right, I'm an entrepreneur, I have a business. In that entrepreneurial space, that startup space, the business space as a whole, really, there is that whole thing that comes into gender as well now.
Sure.
And it's the intersectionality of all the different things and all the different layers, of course, it creates. And again, these are conversations that we have quite open and honestly, right, in our community, because we're all made up of different intersections of things. For instance, if you're a woman in business or another marginalized gender, it is much more difficult. We're still not seen as capable. Right. We're not seen as, good enough to really be in the room half the time, let alone sit at the table, to be funded, investment funding, grants, all of that. We're way under-supported financially. It's just all of those things. And of course, all of the attitudes and things like that, despite the fact that when women are on the boards, they do tend to actually, even very large organizations, their revenue and profit margins are more. And that's just kind of a fact. So it's interesting that, but then when you add in those additional layers of, right, I'm a woman or marginalized, other marginalized gender, right, tick, but I also have this disability. Oh, that's another one. And I'm also neurodivergent. Oh, that's another one. Depending maybe on where you live, depending on your age, whether you're too young, you're too old, your sexuality, even,
skin
of
color,
course, the color, yes, your race, your ethnicity, your culture, even, so many things, right, come into play.
Right.
And, it was funny because there was a lady in our community who I became quite friends with, and, and we would laugh, and she would say, yes, well, like a black single, gay mom who's neurodivergent and has fibromyalgia and other things, I'm like the mass of, like the mass of all of the things, right? But it's only when we have these kind of conversations, it's not about like blame, it's not like about wanting to take anything from anybody else, but it's just being able to have conversations and say, hey, these things, this is what's going on, right? So how can we create a society that actually benefits everyone, where everyone is seen as having value, and everyone, rather than having that lens of, no, you're not as capable or you're not as worthy, how can we have a lens of, right, your experience in some way, whatever your life experience is, matters in some way. What can we learn from that? What can you share from that? What, that has a value. And I think if all of us can just understand that, although many of us, yes, because we like to organize things, right, our brains do naturally, we fall into these natural categories, but every individual is unique, and it's not just neurodivergent people, we're all unique, all of us, our brains, our physiology, like everything that makes us, our childhood experiences, our traumas that we've had, the joys in our life, whatever it might be, all of those things make us unique. And if we can find a way to, I guess, be more open, to understanding that even if we don't agree with someone, even if maybe we can't quite understand where they're coming from or don't understand maybe something that they've gone through, but understand that they, as that unique individual with those unique experiences, have value, right? So now how can we all put this value together to make things better for all of us, not just maybe specific groups in specific countries in specific ways.
So that's what you're trying to do, I think, with Lady Rebel Club. Is that correct? Tell us a little bit about what Lady Rebel Club is and how folks can get involved in it or support it or benefit from it. So, tell me more about this adventure of yours.
Yeah, well, this is it. So I realized then, now I came up with the name, funnily enough, right away. And I knew it was great. I have my my main background was in sort of brand and strategy. So I was like, right, this is a good one. We need to trademark it. I don't know what it's going to be. But we're going to do something with it. And then I really spent about 2 or 3 years not knowing, like I said, what was going to happen, but just really immersing myself even more with people, who might be in that community. And it kind of started off with ideas around just hidden disabilities. And then I realized, no, that's not, again, that's segmenting rather than looking at the, the intersectionality of all of us.
Sure.
And I couldn't quite find an organization, especially a global, what aimed to be a global one, that really looked at us as a whole. So the human as a whole with all types of disabilities, right? And neurodivergencies, because again, those can tend to go hand in hand with a lot of us in different ways. And our allies, and we say our allies as well, because, there's a lot of, men who support us, men who maybe have disabilities or don't have disabilities, who are neurodivergent or not, but they see the value in what we're doing, and the benefit that it can bring to the economies worldwide.
Right.
And I think it was access to funding. Apologies if that's incorrect, but I believe it was a report by Access to Funding who had said that if investors were to invest in businesses that were like owned by disabled founders, like there would be more than like 500 million in returns annually. It would increase by 500 million. And here in the UK, 25% and it's actually higher because that's just going on disability and not looking at, there's a lot of us who don't disclose our disabilities or neurodivergencies either. But 25% of us entrepreneurs and founders here in the UK alone are, would be classed as disabled. So imagine if we got the support that we needed. We're 400 times less likely, let me correct, 400 times, I just want to stress that, less likely to be invested in and funded than somebody who is not disabled or has disclosed their disability. However, if you're ADHD, you're actually 300 times more likely to be an entrepreneur. Now, when you look at the disparity between those stats, it's huge, right? So imagine if we were able to better support, those of us who are ADHD, across, who are entrepreneurs everywhere, and support not just them, but, of course, all of us better and empower us, the difference that could make, to the global economies. It would be huge, and even when you look at like small businesses are the backbone of all economies.
Absolutely.
And, so many small business owners, again, are disabled. So through that process, it's not just to support us because we deserve it, but it can make really, huge impact, in the world. And I think that that's something that very, very, very slowly institutions and governments are starting to wake up to. And hopefully that will, a bit of a quicker pace I would like to see, but hopefully that will start to result in not just organizations seeing the benefit of maybe employing more disabled and neurodivergent people and how we can support them, but how we can help them, to run empowering businesses.
Support that entrepreneurship of folks that are naturally drawn to that anyway, right?
Yeah, and a lot of us do it. Some of us do it out of, need because we just can't work, for whatever reason in that situation. But also a lot of us do it because we are very impact driven. And when you look at like whether you're an eco entrepreneur or social impact entrepreneur, like, like I am, or whatever, whatever kind of label you want to give it, so many of us are very impact driven because we have had to fight and, and for everything that we've had, it has taken such grit and determination and creative thinking and problem solving and, and all the great things that of course make, great entrepreneurs and business owners. But we really have had to fight for a lot of that, and work really, really hard to, to get to where we are. So I think that there's a lot that we can bring, to the table, so to say, and hopefully those in power, if you're watching,
Yes. Yes.
we'll eventually, start to see that. So
Yes.
that's really what we need.
We
Yeah.
support those who are trying to get into power that might want to help facilitate those changes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's, where the idea with, because I always knew that funding, again, was such an issue with all of us. And although it's very small now, the Frankie's Fund, which is named after my sister.
Yeah.
If even, even like with there was a local, artist here who received a small, art award, for some of her work and things. And she's a single mom, an artist, and just, just a fabulous girl. She's lovely. And it was so empowering for her to receive that, even though it wasn't a lot, of money. Just the fact that other people also believe in her and see the potential that she has. And so, yes, money is part of it, but it's also just letting others know that we believe in what they can do. We believe in their potential. And but that also it's carving that out. And I think, part of our message is, yes, we shouldn't have to hide. And it goes back to that hiding. We shouldn't have to hide who we are, our disability, our neurodiversity, or whatever it is, right? That can apply to a lot of us in many different ways.
Sure.
In order to be seen as valuable, or capable, or accepted, and I think that's a huge part of our like overall movement and I guess message, that we would have in general.
Yeah. I saw your hashtag No More Hiding.
Yes. So that's a huge part, because that's the first step, I think, for all of us. And it was only when I stopped hiding from myself, from others, that I could really own all of who I was. But also, again, and this applies to, our general life as well, but in business, I could actually I could really look at all of the things, right? Because we all have our strengths and weaknesses. We all have things we're good at. We all have things we're not so hot at, right? That we need support with, or maybe we need to, up-level our skills, or or whatever it might be. And once I really start to look at all of that, I could really figure out, how is it that I need to work best? Get rid of the cookie cutters, get rid of all, the gurus going, this is how you have to do it. Let's figure out how I need to do it. So it was both working within the context of the business, but then also figuring out, well, what does actual success look like for me? What is it that I want out of this? And yes, of course, there's like, big giant, missions and visions that we have that we want, and the impact that we want to make. But then on a personal note, there's things that are important to me as well, and actually being happy in the business, and being happy. It doesn't mean things aren't going to be hard at times and everything's going to be easy.
Sure.
But being happy doing the work that I'm doing, and the purpose that I'm doing it for, is very, very, important to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Having that meaning in life is, we all need that. We all need that sense of purpose. Right.
Yeah. And I don't think a lot of us, though, who, when we go into business, we even if we have that aspiration initially, because it is difficult, and many times, we have to start again, and we try something new, and and that's very, very common. Of course, we've done that, as well. But there's that opportunity for us to be able to connect with what it really looks like for us, whether it's, I don't want to make £100 million a year. I'm happy to make this. What's most important to me is to have that time with my family, or whatever it might be.
Sure.
And I think too often we have people, again, we have those cookie cutters, and this is what
we all need to fit in
like.
this box. Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
So in fact, that's, a new hashtag you're going to start actually seeing soon, is kind of like ban the boxes and toss the cookie cutters, because I think that those are very important.
I will support those hashtags. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good. So if someone goes to ladyrebelclub.com, they're also going to see, I think you're promoting a one-day rebellion. A global hybrid event is coming this October 2024. What is that? What is it, and how can people get involved in it and support you? Or support the event if it's not supporting you directly, but how can people support you and or the event?
Yes, well, the event is, it's just kind of what it says on the tin. It's meant to just be global hybrid event. So we're going to have a very small local event in Dublin. And then we have some partners, globally that we'll be working with to bring some content from their locations and different things like that. It's all about creating a truly inclusive and diverse entrepreneurial festival, if you will. So it'll start off very small. Of course, this is the first one.
Yeah.
But we want to have like a diverse tea room fashion show. We're going to have some art. We're going to have some music. But of course, like speakers, and different things like that in different breakout rooms to do different things.
Yeah.
And a little bit of a tech thing as well. So we have, I won't go into too much detail because I want to save some of it.
Sign up for it and attend the event if you want to learn more about the tech thing. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's going to be, no cost to our community as well, which is a good thing.
That is also,
and it's all about not having those barriers. And
don't
get me wrong, there's ways of course our community can, they can work with us on the magazine. They can, if they wanted to pay to be a sponsor, they could do. There's a lot of different, buy merchandise or different kinds of things like that.
Yeah. And it's We Roar magazine, right? I want to make sure you're getting that plug out there too.
That's a big platform. So we have. So one of the things specifically for our community as a whole, what we could see after years of kind of researching and things like that is that it is that equity of opportunity that's missing. So especially for them to have more money and then to make more impact. Again, a lot of us are very impact driven. So part of that process to allow both of those to happen, we could see in the media, and I know with your background, you'll probably, may understand this as well. But a lot of times when we bring stories to the media, and I've had quite a lot of media and PR, and it's been fantastic, and I'm very thankful for all of it. But we have to adapt ourselves and our story to what that outlet needs and how it needs to be positioned, and all of that kind of stuff. So it doesn't always suit us. It might not always have the benefit for us that we would like. And I think also in the media, unfortunately, a lot of times people like us are either superfied, meaning we're complete superheroes and everything, look at all this wonderful stuff. And, and then kind of the example I always like to give, because I will never forget this. It was a lady I saw, she was, the photographs were just brilliant, dressed all in white, house immaculate, 12 kids or something like, I think it was 10 or 12 kids, all in white, life is perfect. And she was ADHD, and I'm going, this is not true.
Right.
First of all, if you have 10 kids, there's no way
things
the house is
going to
look
calm
like
at home, right?
Yes, right. But we're superfied, and unfortunately, the effects that has, on others, we're going, well, why can't I? Is my life not like that? Why does my house not look like that? How come I can't function like that, right? Or on the other side, we're sad puppies, and like it's like, what is the point of going on living, right? Because we're so sad and miserable, which again, of course, affects a lot of us in very negative ways.
Puts a stigma.
So we could see where there was a huge void of having really our genuine stories and missions, even if it's something, whatever it is that we want to talk about. Some of us have created businesses, like I have, that's around disability or neurodiversity. Some of us haven't, and if it's not, and if that isn't critical to the story, everything shouldn't hinge on, that one fact, right? So the way that we conduct all of our interviews and everything is, it's not poised around that this is the thing that you have to talk about. We let them, again, share their stories in a way that really kind of suits them. And we've had really great success. It's not perfect, by any means, but we have some really great collaborations with partners who share the magazine, with their communities, and everything that we do is about collaboration as well. These so what we call them rebel collaborations, of course, because we have to brand it, right?
Of course.
Yes, of course.
I love it.
But it's working with partners who will share the magazine with their communities, we give them, maybe some of them, space. Not even all of them have asked for it, but space in the magazine where we can then, promote them, but also their community, for instance. So it's about creating those win-win-wins for everyone, which I think is really, really important. And it's allowed us, off the back of just our second issue, it was over 1 million people that the magazine had gone out to.
Wow.
So direct by email. And considering at that time, I think our list was only like 200 people because we had only just started it.
That's
wonderful. It was really powerful. So, and then we have like a podcast that's starting back up soon, and a TV network as well. Okay. A streaming network. Yeah. So again, the more that we can get, like with the event, like with the media, with the tech things that we're working on, just trying as many ways as possible, to think of how we can create this equity of opportunity for our community, as well as, collaborating with our allies to improve things for all of us.
Fantastic. Well, I want to be respectful of your time as well, Jennifer. So let me transition into, kind of giving you the floor again, but what's your call to action if, somebody's listening to this and inspired by everything that you've shared, which I can't imagine they won't be, because it's a wonderful story that you've shared. Your journey is very powerful, and I appreciate your willingness to share it on my show. What's your call to action? What can people do to support Lady Rebel Club, support making a more equitable world around gender and neurodiversity? What do you want people to take away from listening to this episode today?
Well, I would say the first and foremost would be that if you identify with any of the things that we've talked with today, is to know that you're not alone. You're not broken, you're not less than, that you have immense worth. And I would just encourage you to try to work to find that if you don't feel that you have it right now, because it's there. Even if that means getting external support, to do that, which at times we all have to do.
100%.
And I guess beyond that is just connect with us. We have a saying where we say, like, there's nothing that you have to join. Oh, you have to join this membership, or you have to do that. If you're one of us, you're one of us. That's it. If you would like to connect with us more, feel free to, go to the website. You can drop us an email. You can, follow us on our socials. And we're very happy to connect with people. And even if maybe you don't feel like you're in our community, but you want to support our community, like our mission, and you can see aligned values, again, feel free to reach out to us in any way. And we're continually looking for more partners to connect with, and then hearing from our community and how we can better support them.
Fantastic. Well, it's, again, ladyrebelclub.com. I'll make sure to put in the notes page of this, the link, all of the social media channels and the other links that you shared with me offline. That will all be available for anybody who's listening, who wants to, get engaged, contact you, support you, just join you in the movement that you're starting, or someone who needs your help and, direction. And as you said, they need that support system that they can identify with. So I hope that people can connect and continue to find this equitable space that we can all share, right? It's what we're, I think, trying to accomplish. So
and thank you as well, Stephen, for being such a gracious host, and for inviting me onto the show. It's been lovely.
Yeah, well, I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to speak with you. So Jennifer, we end the show. Every show ends the same. We talk about different subjects, all under kind of this broad umbrella of sustainability, and social equity is certainly part of sustainability, undoubtedly an important part of it. But these are hard subjects, right? We talked about some difficult things today, and I like to follow up these calls to actions by ending each episode with a little bit of hope, and hope being defined as this idea of you can envision a better future, but you also feel you have the agency to help make it come to be. not without hardships, not without challenges, and maybe not without failure, but there's this vision and you feel you can do something to help it become reality. So I love hearing from my guests what their hope is for the future. So I'm going to throw 3 questions out at you real quick, and
Okay.
just give me your kind of gut reaction of what the answer is to the
Yes,
question.
I will do my best.
Yeah, of course, of
Okay.
course.
I'll try not to
Believe me,
overthink.
you're going to be fine.
Yes.
So what is your vision for a better future, Jennifer? And it
I
can be
would
for you
just,
personally, professionally, or for the
yeah,
globe. Just what's your vision for a better future?
I think it's just that we understand that everyone has value, and I think if we can, when we look at people, when we speak to people, when we first meet people, when we first hire them, whatever the situation is, if we can say to ourselves, yeah, this maybe we don't know the value that they bring to the table, but yeah, they have value, and
Yes.
that being different in whatever way, doesn't necessarily make them less than, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So why is that your vision for a better future?
Because I think that we, as I've sort of said previously, we all are individuals. We all are unique. It's been so many things, whether it's nature, whether it's environment, the journey to where we are today, right now, having this conversation, has made me who I am, and you who you are. And
Right.
we're very different, people. We're all unique. And if we can actually understand that and appreciate and see the wonder, I think, in that as well, right? The wonder and the curiosity, this is probably why kids in general, especially when they're younger, get along so much better.
Yeah.
And I think we almost need to go back to that, like childhood, where we're inquisitive, where we don't assume we know all the answers because this is a
Right.
previous experience that we've had, or this is what I've been taught, or this is what I've read, or or whatever it might be. So we can have that curiosity, that interest to really, want to understand people and learn from them. And again, if we see something different, not necessarily go, oh well, that's not for me, oh, why are they that way?
Right.
But go, oh well, approach it with curiosity. Well, I wonder, how they do X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times, ask us
Just
even,
ask.
because we
Yes.
don't mind, we're humans. We're all, inquisitive in some way, shape, or form, aren't we?
Right.
So yeah, just having those conversations and being curious, and seeing the wonder, I think, in life in general is a biggie.
So the final question, imagine your future scenario where everybody is seen as having inherent value, and we're treating each other with kindness and compassion and inquisitive natures, as opposed to boxing people into
Mm,
things. So that future is a reality. It's happening right
mhm.
now. How does that make you feel?
Content, like
Ah,
job done. Yes.
nice.
Mm.
Right on. Well, Jennifer, I am going to join you in working for that vision. I hope to do my
Mm,
part, however small that is, to help create that world, because it's a beautiful vision, and I want to be
mm.
part of that too. So
Oh, well, you're helping right now, so thank you.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. It has been an absolute joy speaking with you. And I wanted, there was one other thing. I think I wrote a note that I want to make sure I share, because I thought it was something that was a really important part of your message. I saw this on one of your LinkedIn posts. Um, and I'm going to summarize it, so please clarify it if I'm off base in my summary. But
Okay.
you basically said something to the effect of, if I tell you I have autism, don't tell me you're sorry, and don't ask me to do a trick.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's beautiful. It's just
Mm,
summarize, like, treat you as another person with inherent worth and
yes.
inherent value is, I think, what you're asking us to do. And
Mhm.
did I capture that correctly?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Thank you.
Jennifer, thank you very much for your time today. And I look forward to supporting Lady Rebel Club and all of the things that you're doing next to make this world a better place. So thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode of Stories Sustain Us. I want to extend my sincere gratitude to Jennifer Cairns for sharing her powerful and inspiring journey with us today. To me, Jennifer's story highlights the importance of creating equity of opportunity for all. I really appreciated the point she made when saying that investing in disabled founders not only brings economic benefits, but also enriches our global economies with unique perspectives and innovative problem-solving skills. Equity clearly fits into conversations about sustainability because a truly sustainable future must be inclusive. Supporting and empowering women and other marginalized genders, as well as individuals with disabilities and neurodivergencies, is crucial for building a more equitable society. We all have a role to play, including institutions and governments, in recognizing the value of employing and supporting disabled and neurodivergent individuals in their entrepreneurial endeavors. Connecting with organizations like Lady Rebel Club can help us support the mission of creating equity of opportunity for all, fostering a diverse and inclusive entrepreneurial landscape. For me, Jennifer's experiences also underscore the need for real conversations about mental health and neurodiversity to foster a more inclusive and supportive society. Normalizing these conversations can reduce stigma and promote a culture of understanding. You know, I think something happened in this interview that I hope you picked up on. It was clear to me while it was happening, and it's this idea of a positive reinforcement loop. As Jennifer was sharing so openly and honestly and vulnerably about her experience with mental health issues and neurodivergent diagnoses, it really created the safe space for me to share about my issues with mental health. I didn't know when or if I was ever going to share on this podcast that I am an alcoholic in recovery, or have a diagnosis of substance use disorder. Thankfully, I've been in recovery a long time, been sober for over 18 years, and it's a wonderful life. And I can't imagine going back to what it used to be. But it's something that I wasn't sure I was ever going to bring up on this show. Not because I'm, embarrassed about it, but I didn't know if it ever fit into the purpose of the podcast. But really witnessing Jennifer speak so openly and honestly and vulnerable about her life and her journey, and normalizing the conversation around those hard subjects really opened the door for me to share about my story and my journey as well. And I think that's how we do that. Someone is open, honest, and vulnerable. Normalizing a conversation gives that freedom for somebody else to join in and be open, honest, and vulnerable, which then further normalizes the conversation, and that positive loop then continues. So I would encourage you all to find those safe spaces, with family or friends, counselors, support groups, wherever you may need to find that safe space, doctors, therapists, whatever, the lists are out there. But find that safe space where you can be open, honest, and vulnerable about whatever mental health challenges or neurodivergent diagnoses or physical health challenges that you're facing. For far too long, these types of issues, mental health and neurodivergent issues in particular, were seen as something that shouldn't be talked about. And for far too long, people would live in the shadows and suffer alone in silence. And that's not necessary anymore. We don't need to be afraid of having hard conversations around these very real issues of mental health and neurodivergent diagnoses, or physical health diagnoses for that matter as well. The more we shine light on these issues, the more folks can come from the shadows and get the help that they need. There is help out there. And as someone who has spent a portion of my life living in the shadow, suffering silently, my life changed immensely for the better when I finally acknowledged I had a problem and sought help for it. So I want to sincerely thank Jennifer for demonstrating how to do it, how to have a conversation where you're open, honest, and vulnerable, so that you can normalize a difficult conversation for someone else to feel safe and get the help they need. Really, truly can't thank Jennifer enough for leading by example. And you, audience members, thank you for being here as well and joining us on this journey today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends and family. Help spread the word. Would really appreciate it. Together, I'm confident we can create a more sustainable and equitable world. And before we go, as I do every week, I want to give a quick plug for the next episode of Stories Sustain Us. Next week, my guest is a passionate tech enthusiast with a remarkable interdisciplinary background in digital media and game development. Her entrepreneurial spirit and visionary mindset has seamlessly combined the physical and digital realms, revolutionizing the way fashion is experienced. Personally, I learned a lot of new information about AI and extended reality, or XR, which is an umbrella term for technologies that combine the real and virtual worlds to create immersive experiences. It was a truly fascinating conversation, and you're not going to want to miss it. So you can catch episode number 7 of Stories Sustain Us on July 30th, wherever you listen to podcasts, or on storiessustainus.com. So until next time, I'm Stephen Schauer. Please take care of yourself and each other. Take care.